Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Jerry Bryson McMillan. We're going to be discussing his amazing memoir, To Then and Back Again. Available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, pretty much every online book reseller. People, head on over there today, pick up your copies, and get lost in this amazing book. And I'm going to tell you why you need to do that in just a moment. Before we go any further, I want to point out the fact that Jerry was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And people, if you follow us, you already know I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. So listen, for my writers out there, if you have gone through your process, you have spent some sleepless nights, I'm talking about some countless hours, investing in your masterpiece. And now you've done it. You've gotten to the end of the road. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. Although one thing you forgot is now you're going to need help moving the book you just finished creating. Well, if that's you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact ARP. I'm telling you, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to authorreputationpress.com today and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Jerry here on the line. Now, as I mentioned to you a moment ago, his book, To Then and Back Again, is a memoir. Okay, now it's a memoir, and this is the first part of hopefully a series of books. Now, it's the only one available at this moment, but you're going to want to check back into Amazon, Barnes & Noble, his Facebook page by searching his name, Jerry McMillan. I mean, look at all of the regular places and check back in frequently because you're going to want to get the next ones the moment that they become available. Now, first and foremost, because it's a memoir, we're going to be traveling alongside Jerry in his life, obstacles that he has encountered and how he has overcome them. Now, what I love about having authors that have written memoirs on our network with is because people, we understand that as much as we would like to avoid obstacles, because let's be honest, they're never fun when we're going through them, right? I mean, I was just speaking for myself. There's nothing more that I would like than to just avoid them entirely. Well, we know, first and foremost, we can't. And secondly, through those experiences, that is how wisdom is gained. Well, what if I told you it doesn't always have to be your particular experience that wisdom derives from? Well, once you hear that, well, now you're on board, right? Because you could potentially avoid certain situations and circumstances by listening to someone else's story, by listening to what Jerry, in this instance, had to go through, how he overcame them. And now we're going to take the wisdom that he gained, take that and implement it into our lives. I'm telling you, people, this book is layered, so nuanced. He couldn't fit it all in one book, which is why there's a part 2, hopefully a part 3, and maybe 4, 5, and 6 on the horizon, because there is a lot to cover. And I promise you, we're only going to capture the essence here today. By the time we've concluded, you're going to run to those purchasing pages, pick up your copies, and get lost in the journey because you're going to understand how valuable of a book this truly is. And at the end of the day, don't take my word for it. Take Jerry's. It's his book. He's written it. It's his life. He's lived it. And he's going to be able to articulate it much better than I ever could. So do me a favor. Sit back and strap in. Jerry, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction. And thank you very much for being a guest with us. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, Benji. How are you?
Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, Jerry. And I know we have a lot of information, man. You've had a very eventful life, and we're looking forward to traveling along those days with you through your pages. Let's jump right in, Jerry, because I know learning about your background and learning about the book are going to really be combined in this instance. So, To Then and Back Again. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
It's a book about my past and the things and happenings that have occurred, good, bad, indifferent, however you want to say it. And I started the book originally probably 20 years ago or longer. And I did it as a therapeutic because I knew that some things that happened in my past, I was carrying with me into the future.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to relieve that situation. And then it dawned on me, I like to write. And I thought, you know what? What if I just put it down on paper? Exercise it that way. And that's what I did. So, for the next probably 5 years, I wrote the book. And it has helped. It's been very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I never expected to have so much going on for me as it concerns the book, but that's it, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, Jerry, thank you very much for saying that. And I mean, an easy follow-up there with that one is if this was something that started off, as you said, therapeutic, right? It's almost like you were journaling and getting these things out of your mind onto the page and just releasing, right? And I think we can all relate to that in one way, form, or
Absolutely.
another. Well, when did this become something that was just as a journal for your personal use to then translating into something you wanted to publish for the world? What inspired you to do that?
Well, as I got into it and started moving through it, I didn't realize there were so many things that have happened during my past. And I just kept going. And once you get started, it's hard to stop. And I'm, and currently, like I've said, there's much more to that I have yet to put down and put pen to paper on.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, follow-up question here. I know the book, although, again, it's covering a lot of different aspects of your life, one of the underlying messages and themes, as we have discussed previously, is about overcoming obstacles, right? About never giving up, about that fight, that perseverance that we all have within us. We just need to reach down and pull it out. Well, talk to our listening audience here. Let's go into maybe one or two of the stories that you talk about in the book and really the importance of it and how that message can be taken to really help inspire your readers.
I would say that what really pushed me into writing this to get it exercised out of my life and out of my soul was an encounter with somebody in my youth. I was about 13 years old, and this man really put a dagger through my heart and my soul, and it followed me all the way into adulthood. And I was having troubles with relationships and just always having to think about that and know that this is going to, pop up somewhere along the way. And I thought, well, you know what? If I write this down and if I put it down well, I can reread it and just be done with it. It's on paper. It don't have to be in my head anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that's the first part of what happened. And as I was writing that, I stopped at a certain point, and then I moved forward because there was a lot that happened between my first encounter and my second encounter that was pretty interesting. So then I met him again, and this time it was what I would call balls to the walls. I was ready to kill him. I was a little older, and he walked out of my house as I was walking toward my house. And as soon as he kind of pulled out, I ran into the house and went upstairs, got my .22, rifle and proceeded downstairs to run outside, chase him down the road, and started shooting at him. And if I would have been in the house at that time, I probably most likely would have killed him.
Wow. You know, Jerry, without knowing all of the particular circumstances to that individual story, I can tell you that it already formulates a bridge with me, and I know with my listening audience. Because people, listen, how many of us can relate? Again, the specific nuances to it vary. But how many of us can think back to a time where we let someone else carry so much power over us, over our mentality, over our lives, over our happiness? That is something that, again, you know, the circumstances may vary, but we've all been there. We all can relate. Jerry, thank you very much for sharing. People, I'm telling you, this is why you got to head on over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. This is a book that not only is going to showcase his life, but it's going to connect with yours. It's going to help move mountains, because I promise you, and this is where I think a lot of the power lies in Jerry's book, you are going to be able to see yourself on those pages. And to be able to elicit really any emotion, but such a strong connection, I think is really the mark of a great writer. And we've only heard one particular story. The book is filled with them. So I'm telling you, To Then and Back Again is a title you got to pick up. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Check out his Facebook page by searching his name, Jerry McMillan. This is something you need to get your hands on. And this is something you need to check back in for frequently to get the next ones, the moment that they become released. You know, Jerry, curiosity here for myself with this next one, but what would you say throughout this entire process of writing this book and traveling down memory lane for yourself, what would you say was a highlight for you? Or if not a highlight, because of course, given that previous answer that you've given, highlight carries the wrong connotation. What would you say surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began?
Well, Benji, that's a pretty deep question. Okay. So probably about 20 years ago, I would say, I was having difficulties with my own sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I think without knowing it, that's what spurred the book. Yeah. And as I was going through and writing the book, I began to start thinking, one incident that happened, and it makes me well up. So I might not get through this without doing the same thing.
No, take your time.
I was probably 15 years old, and I'd spent the night with a friend. We were walking down the street, going to get a pop at the local gas station. Mm-hmm. It was probably 10 o'clock in the morning. There was a guy that I knew, well, that the whole town knew, and we were walking by his house. He was getting on his bike, had all of his fishing poles, and everybody thought he was, gay because he lived with an older man. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, he had made a comment to me. I made a comment back, and then my nickname is Berg. And the one thing that could piss me off smoother than anything else is for somebody to call me bird turd. Yeah. Well, he made the comment, bird turd. And it just welled up in me. And I flew over and I basically beat the poor guy to death. And him, as a side, he was trying to pull me off, this guy. Yeah. And this guy was screaming, you got to read that in the book, because if I say it, I'm going to, tear up.
Yeah.
that was the most awful thing that I had ever done to any person in my life. And so anyway, I took what had happened to me, and James, that was his name, I took it out on James, and we ran and hid, because needless to say, the cop was looking for us, found us. That's in another chapter. It may be in the same chapter. But I've never in my life felt that way, except that one time in my life. And I have begged God's forgiveness since ever that happened.
Jerry, thank you very much for sharing. People, I'm going to listen. Jerry is not looking for praise. And this is not so much to praise him, but in a way, I'm going to be praising him. But can we take a second and acknowledge how raw and unfiltered this is? And then when we acknowledge that, take a second to appreciate the courage and the bravery that it takes to be able to showcase that. Because listen, here's the thing. Y'all can't see me, but I got my hand raised because I'm throwing myself under the bus, but I know so many of you can relate. Oftentimes, it is hard enough for us to look in the mirror at ourselves and acknowledge certain things about ourselves, acknowledge certain things about our past, that otherwise we would just rather sweep under the rug. To then take it a step further and to create this literary window for the world to be able to see those blemishes, to see some of those dark aspects of ourselves and our lives, takes bravery and courage on a level that many people don't dare ever go. And the fact that Jerry has taken the initiative to showcase that is where the praise comes in, right? Not only the fact that, again, it takes an immense amount of bravery, but also I view this as a remarkable resource. Because, again, when we really stop and we get down to it, and Jerry said something earlier with the previous question of how something that I asked was, listen, that gets deep. Well, people, this book, this is much bigger than a literary creation. This is a movement. This is a lifestyle change. This is something that gets deep. It can get philosophical. It can really make you reflective. Because as you look through these poignant moments in his life, it's going to force you to acknowledge moments in your own. And how that can be a building block, that can be a stepping stool to helping you, taking some of those skeletons out of your closet and forcing you to acknowledge certain things. I'm telling you, this book is powerful, people. This has a lot going on. And this is only part one. Jerry has more on the horizon. This is amazing. This is incredible stuff. Jerry, as we transition and we start to close out, I want to know more about that part 2, more about part 3, 4, and 5, hopefully, that are coming up. I know you mentioned before that this could potentially, not guaranteed yet, but could potentially develop into a series of books. Talk to us a little bit more about what you think is going to be coming up on the horizon.
Okay, Benji. So I kind of foreshadowed in this book, and I don't know if I was doing it intentionally as much as maybe it was just a subconscious something or other, but In the first book, I kind of highlight my best friends, our childhood together as friends.
Yeah.
And the mysteries that were going on in his mind. And that transitions into the second book. And, he's my lifelong best friend, Bob. And I had built an A-frame, me and my dad, when I was 19 or 20, on some land my dad had. And that was in a small town nowhere, Kansas. Well, after I lived there a couple of years, I wanted to rent it out and move to Salina, which was, the big city. And when that happened, my good friend, Sherry, she moved. I let her rent it out. And Bob, he was going through some serious problems mentally. And I got a call one night, and it was that Bob was dead. And, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
What do you mean dead? So what had happened was apparently him and Sherry were having some difficulties, and I knew that. But the final, he had been in and out of the hospitals for slitting his wrists and a few other things, but he finally decided to take that walk. And apparently it was, I don't know if it was revenge or what it was with Sherry, but the garage was under the house, and apparently he was over there thinking she was there, but she wasn't. So he broke into the garage, and while he was there, he cut the water. So somebody would have to come down and look. He had wrapped a towel around his head and blew his head off. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah,
there.
Of course.
And I'm still best friends with Sherry. She's been one of my life. She's like a sister. We're like brother and sister. But, I have to think about Bob every once in a while and what it might have been like had he not done that. And I just can't tell you. So that's in the next book. It'll be a continuation, but I think what people will get out of that mostly is that, and I don't think I specified this, but if you have these feelings or if you know anybody that has these feelings, you need to heed the warning signs.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way. And because I lost my best friend at 24, and, but back then, in 84 or 85, whenever it happened, 86, I don't know. It wasn't the same as it is today. We didn't have anything,
right,
support systems or anything like that. But people need to be aware.
People, such an operative term that Jerry just ended with, that people need to be aware. Well, I'm going to connect it back to his book, because people, you need to be aware of this book, To Then and Back Again. I know the subject matter that we have discussed today has been heavy. If you ask me, I wouldn't have it any other way. Because listen, life is dynamic, and there are a lot of fantastic things about it. And please rest assured, not everything is as heavy as these discussions have been. There are a lot of positive aspects also in this book and with future ones. But one thing that I love is the fact that Jerry didn't shy away from exposing some of those darker moments, because again, we all have them. Just the concept of life and death is, it's monumental. It is huge, and it is such a complex feeling in and of itself, right? When you're with someone every single day, and then all of a sudden you're not. It is a difficult concept to wrap your head around. And I don't care how old you are, I don't think you ever actually get used to it, right? It may be something that with age, with experience, you can, you get a little easier on how to withstand it and how to process those thoughts and those emotions. But like Jerry just said, he still thinks of his friend. There's not a day that goes by that he doesn't have these thoughts and the pain that lingers from the absence. I'm telling you, this is a book that connects with everyone. I could sit here, I could talk to Jerry for hours. This book deserves that kind of attention. For the sake of the interview now, though, the onus is on you. The responsibility is on all of you. You know what you got to do. I'm going to plug it for you once again, even though I know I don't have to. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Facebook by searching Jerry McMillan. People, there are a whole host of places where you can go to pick up your copies. The one thing that is certain is you need to do that. While you're at it, you need to pick up another copy as a gift for someone else to add to their shelf, because this is a remarkable resource you need to add to your shelf. Learn from his journey. Utilize the stories talked about in his book to help assist you in your own. Listen, man, I'm gonna stop now again, because there's so many things that I want to go into. People, you know where you gotta go. You have Jerry Bryson McMillan to thank for all of it. Jerry, this has been a true pleasure, man, an absolute honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, sir. It's been my pleasure.